Bang! Hellfire and the Fall of Empire, a solo campaign by Jim Webster. This is a miniature wargaming campaign that we've been playing through, kind of chill, kind of low-key. A lot of information to track. Very much a spreadsheet exercise, but I'm enjoying the heck out of it. You could use this to generate tabletop battles using... Oh, I gotta stretch. Oh, I love it. His Hellfire, generic 1 to 300 SF Wargames rules. This right here is a match made in heaven. They want to kiss and make little wargame babies, which is kind of what we're doing here, except for the fact that I don't have any modern or near modern 6mm figures, so I'm using one of these limited language models that all the kids are raving about. What you see here are the results of a raid conducted in May of 2949 by these pukes down here, the Puka. They came filtering up through here. They raided Kanatha. They have a bunch of beast-mounted cavalry that were able to break through our defensive lines and tear up the joint. They went full flash mob, broke into all the jewelry shops, stole all the sneakers and tennis shoes, and then they filtered back down here. Today, we need to find out what happens when the Tillian Republic tries to conquer Damascus. Now, this scenario we played last week was a simple try to get as many units through the board as possible, and I kind of stepped back and just said, hey, Chatty, why don't you run that fight for me? And Chatty was like, I would love to pretend to have emotions, and also I would love to pretend to love to run that for you, and they ran the fight, and we didn't suffer a whole lot of casualties. The forces that were involved down here mostly are not available. They're resting, recovering. We do have some mobile army units. We do have some support companies. But the two forces that were participating, we have a tube artillery, right? Guys in the rear with the gear, but they are delivering, huge loads of sound, noise, thunder to the front lines. They come from Hippos. They are Kaisan. That's the empire that has left us alone with all of these filthy, dirty barbarians. So the tube artillery, this is like the highest tech stuff you get. This is like, American grade artillery headed off into sub-Saharan Africa. That would be the equivalent of the real world. Whereas the Tillian Republic, they're not bad. I mean, we're probably talking not high tech, top of the line. We do have electronic countermeasures. There's a thing in here. We got an engineer battalion. Maybe we should send them to, yeah, see, electronic countermeasures. So we got 4 teams and counter battery. So our artillery is going to be able to take out the Tillian artillery. And this is one of the first things we should talk about. When these Tillians come in to try to steal Damascus from us, what do we have to defend? Well, what are they attacking with is the first question. That's on this page right here. I warned you, there's a lot of, right? This is the year 2949. And the notes I took, the Tillians are bringing 3 companies of infantry. It's only 24 bases. But they have 3 heavy tanks. I can't match that firepower. They have 1 company of artillery. And so, okay, these tanks are going to be a real problem for us, I think. And then, but I'm actually going to flip the script this time around. So how do we deal with those? Well, we do have heavy artillery. They outrange these guns. The Tillian do not have air support. We do. That's the benefit. Of course, this is a little more complicated than the last fight we had because we have to figure out how to teach our little model here how to do a fight for a city. This time I wasn't quite as polite. Run a war game for me. I'd be happy to run a war game for you. To make it engaging, let's set up a scenario. Well, all right, slow down, Chief. And I got to warn you, this one, not quite as smart as the last one. I don't train my language model. I just dive in. That way, it's a surprise for me. It's a new thing every time. He says, and the model says, all right, what setting, what forces? And I was like, all right, we're going to be running a near modern day scenario in which the Tillian Republic is trying to capture the city of Damascus. Damascus is a medium-sized city that is a center of art and culture that lies on the western bank of a wide and gentle river. See, which is right here, right? So there's Damascus. And it's mostly on the western bank of a river. For what it's worth, I have a close-up. See, there's Damascus. There's a hill here, a nice defensive feature. There's a brisk, smaller river that flows in. But that's kind of what it looks like. And remember, the Tillians are coming up this way. So I don't know if they need to get across there. I'm not too concerned about that just yet. All right? I still need to tell it, it says, okay, here's a modern day scenario. Here's the setting. Here's the Republic. Here's the Damascus defenders. Here's the objective. Whoa, slow down, Skippy. What are you doing? What is you doing, baby? And then it even says, I'm like, no, hold on. The Tillians are attacking with 3 companies of infantry with 10 bases each. They're wearing flak armor, and they use projectile weapons. They're supported by 3 heavy tanks with tracked propulsion and 1 company of artillery. And 1 company of artillery battery? Yeah, okay, 1 battery of artillery. Okay, great. So let's refine the model says, let's go. And then here's the Damascus defenders, and I'm all like, bro, what are you doing? What are you even talking about? Here's the possible outcome of turn number 1. I'm like, no, stop. The defenders, let me tell you who the defenders are. I've already told you guys who the defenders are, so I'm not going to read that. Very excited. This adds an intriguing layer of complexity. Let's go get right to it. Here's turn 2. Now, I didn't read any of this, the Damascus defenders, and I'm like, whoa, I haven't started the battle yet. Because first of all, like, you're talking about the Tillian, somewhere up in there it talks about that the Tillians have air superiority, and I'm like, no, boo, that is not the case at all. The Tillians have no air support. Oh, and it says, got it, we're still in the prep phase. Okay, so the battle begins. And then I'm like, God, what are you doing? What, baby, what are you doing? Slow down. Forget the turn results that you've done so far, I had to tell it, right? And it's asking, how would you like to proceed with your move? Now, it didn't do that last time when we were doing the Puka. I just told it to run the game, but I'm intrigued now. Oh, how would you like to proceed? Interesting, but we haven't started yet. He says, okay, well, what's the problem, right? We're going to restart and focus on the setup. And this is what I love about this model. This is why I wouldn't use this for anything at all important. Okay, we'll focus on the setup. Here's turn 1. Here's the battlefield. Here's the objectives. Now we'll begin. Wait, what? Slow down there, Chief. Okay. So we finally have the defenders are defending with all of these things, right? 4 medium track tanks. By the way, that's the 1 company. The Hippos has 3 companies of infantry and 1 company of tanks. I went with 4 infantry for the Kanathans last time. That's this time. Okay, so we do have 1 heavy artillery battery and 3 ground attack aircraft. I just arbitrarily said that this time. Battlefield overview. Medium-sized city situated on the western bank of a wide river. Yep, series of rolling hills and narrow streets. Got it. Key infrastructure such as bridges, power plants, and cultural landmarks scattered throughout. Remember, it's an art city. So that cultural landmarks, oh, that's good. The Tillian Republic is positioned on the outskirts, advancing through open terrain. The Damascus are positioned within the city along key roads and buildings, ready to engage in urban combat. Oh, I like this so far. I think we're doing much better. Mission objectives. The Tillians have to capture the city. They're going to focus on securing the city center and key infrastructure, neutralize organized resistance. Ah, this is good. Okay. Their secondary goal, preserve critical infrastructure for future use, right? I don't want to blow up a power plant. I need power. The Damascus defenders have to prevent them from capturing, hold the key cities, inflict maximum damage. Now we're ready to begin. All right, so your decision. As the Tillian Republic commander, you can choose your first action. Here are some options. Ah, this is interesting. Now it's reading very much like a choose-your-own-adventure. I kind of like this. Do we advance the infantry, deploy the tanks, artillery barrage? Should we do a preliminary artillery bombardment? Should we do recon, which we don't? Or just hold and see what the defenders do, right? Once you decide your move, I'll present the responses and actions of the Damascus defenders. Interesting. Now I'm intrigued. I think we should do an artillery barrage. And the one advantage we have, so I'm just going to tell it. The one advantage that we have is those heavy tanks. So we're going to take full advantage of those. But first, let's just start with an artillery barrage. And Chatty says, okay, they will target strategic locations, enemy artillery positions, key choke points, urban infrastructure. You may also decide to target bridges. The Tillian has a long range, capable of hitting targets several kilometers away. The Damascus defenders could disrupt that. All right, so the Damascus defenders are preparing their defenses. Here's how they would likely respond. But okay, great. So I don't know. I'm doing this live for you guys. The Tillian artillery fires a series of preliminary bombardments, right? Key infrastructure, few suspected strongholds. You roll for the success. Due to the ECM, you expect some of them to miss, however well-coordinated strike. All right, the Damascus defenders tries to respond with ECM, makes it difficult to get precise hits. Oh, The Damascus artillery tries to respond with cavalry, but the ECM interferes with your targeting systems, making it difficult to land precise hits in your artillery. I think this thing is confused. A few shells from the Damascus artillery, it thinks I have them. Oh boy, what an idiot. Causing some damage to my artillery, but the Tillian artillery continues to bombard. The Damascus defenders' infantry inside of buildings use the barrage as cover to reposition. Oh no, some Damascus militia begin to scatter and reposition to more defensible situations. So here's the outcome. This is what I really care about. The Damascus artillery is partially suppressed, but not destroyed. Now I wonder if I can correct it here. You've caused some disruption, though the ECM has reduced your effectiveness. Oh, that's probably what it is. So I targeted their artillery first. Urban infrastructure, the Damascus turn. Now that I'm done, they begin to make their move. Okay? The artillery barrage complete. I have to decide. Am I going to advance infantry or move the tanks up? I'm moving the tanks up. Move tanks up. I don't have any available air support, so I'm going to ignore that. So this is turn 2. Having softened up the enemy defenses with your artillery barrage, you move your heavy tanks forward to provide fire support and assert control over the outer banks, suburbs of Damascus. Your tanks are ready to move into position with the goal of overwhelming objectives. So here, unlike last week, where we had like the model knew enough about miniature war games, and I told it we're using Hellfire, that it was like, oh, we moved 12 inches. We're now we moved 12. We're halfway across the 4-foot table. This is all pure theater of the mind. Very curious. The heavy tanks move into the suburbs, right? They provide close fire support for the infantry. The tanks secure urban choke points. The defenders use artillery counterfire. They start to target the Tillian tanks. Tank engagement. The medium tanks move into position to engage the heavy tanks. The Damascus infantry begin to engage my infantry. The aircraft circle and prepare for a strike against the armor or artillery, but without direct air support from the Tillian side, the defenders can hold off, right? They can choose their moment, right, and execute that. So if we go down, so the execution, the Tillian tanks rumble forward, moving cautiously through the suburbs. They use their long-range cannons. They move along the outer roadway, taking advantage of terrain. The Damascus defenders continue to respond. And here's the outcome. So what is the outcome for the Tillian tank movement? They have successfully advanced. They've secured key intersections. They've taken some light damage, but remain functional. One medium tank has been destroyed. You're gonna have to remember that. The Damascus infantry puts up resistance, but the Tillian infantry is making progress. The aircraft remain on standby, but could soon become a threat. Next step for the Tillian. Do we continue the infantry? Yeah, our tanks have the foothold. So I am going to do that. I am going to advance the infantry, continue with infantry advance. And I'm going to pause for a moment here to say, while the model does its work, let me know if this is really boring. Let me know if this is a good way to present the battle to you. It's not quite the ebb and flow of actually having figures in your hand. We're losing the tactile thing, but I wanted to show you how this works live. Last week, I just ran it and then kind of walked you through the results. This time, I want to show you exactly what the experience is like in real time. With your heavy tanks making progress and clearing key choke points, you order your infantry to advance deeper into the suburbs, right? There's a plan. We know what's going on. I'm going to go a little faster here. The defenders are anticipating the advance. They know the suburbs are being lost, and they have to try to slow your progress. So they're using air support. They're just doing usual stuff. The infantry pushes forward. They begin clearing houses, right? We're doing good. Outcome of their advance. They have successfully advanced deeper into the suburbs, clearing blocks and vital choke points. We are keeping real Fallujah hours here, right? The artillery and aircraft are a threat, but their ability to strike effectively is reduced because of our artillery suppression. Urban fighting is intense. Oh, who knew? It turns out aircraft are risky, and that if you are trying to preserve infrastructure, it's a real problem. The Damascus mechanized infantry is making use of every building, right? So the next step for our Republic, we've advanced our infantry, but the defenders are far from beating. Do we press forward further into the city to support the infantry? Do the remaining Damascus tanks, or do we secure key buildings? These are essential for controlling the flow of battle. Prepare for the counterattack. I'm kind of torn between securing buildings and preparing for the counterattack. Why don't we do the latter? We've got a really good foothold, so I'm going to prepare for counterattack. This might be a mistake. While with the defenders increasingly desperate and the city center within striking distance, you wisely anticipate a counterattack. The defenders will use what remains of their artillery, tanks, and infantry to launch a push to disrupt your advance and prevent you from establishing full control. Right? So we reposition defensively. We set up a solid defensive position. And that's all just blather. Okay, so the Damascus defenders, where the situation is dire, begin a counterattack. So they do artillery counterfire. They're going to focus on our infantry and our tanks. They're going to launch an armor assault, infantry counterattack, aircraft strikes. Now those aircraft are going to get into the game. They're going to bomb armored units that are not under cover. The planes may also disrupt artillery positions if they can locate them. So we settle into defensive. They do artillery fire. We're not rolling any dice here, as I said. Outcome of the counterattack. The Damascus artillery caused some disruption, but our defensive positions have helped mitigate the damage. The Damascus armor attempted a flanking maneuver, but our tanks repelled it, destroying one of their tanks and forcing the other to retreat into cover. That's 2 tanks down. This is going to be an expensive fight. The Damascus infantry launched a counteroffensive, but we held strong. The Damascus aircraft scored some hits, but the tanks remain operational. Oh boy, not going well. We might lose one of our cities here. The Damascus counterattack has been repelled, but heavy fighting continues. Now, do we push deeper into the city, consolidate, or reinforce with reserves? I don't have reserves, so I'm going to push inward to the city center. With the counterattack faltering and your defensive lines holding strong, you push inward to the city center. Man, we probably should have brought that other unit of green infantry. We probably could have used their support. We're going to lead the push with our tanks, the infantry following closely behind. Special teams with anti-tank weapons may be tasked with neutralizing Damascus medium tanks. The defenders' reaction. They've already suffered heavy losses. They're in a desperate situation. They're going to regroup and mount a final stand in the city center. Here's what they might do. The artillery will target our infantry. Let's just go to the execution here, okay? With the Tillian tanks and infantry advancing to the city, momentum of the assault picks up. The tanks lead the way, pushing through key urban districts, while the Tillian infantry clears any defenders hiding in the buildings. The tank assault, they rumble down wide avenues. The infantry moves swiftly. As your forces approach, the defenders make their stand. A Damascus mechanized infantry platoon sets up in a city square using a combination of energy weapons and man-portable anti-tank weapons to slow your advance. We clear them out with the support of tank fire, but the battle is fierce. Ground attack aircraft attempt to strike on a tank column but fail to inflict serious damage. One tank sustained some superficial hits, but it's continued to operate. Man, that's bad. All right. The Damascus resistance is growing desperate. We outgun these guys. This is redonkulous. What do we do now? Finish clearing the city center or prepare for the final assault? We're gonna secure key locations. Yeah. Because we can win this fight. We can take the city, which is going to make the campaign a lot harder. As their forces continue to advance, you shift the focus of your operation to securing key locations. These are vital Damascus infrastructure. The tanks are spearheading the push, and I'm just going to go ahead. They are going to do resistance in key locations, artillery and airstrikes. Your heavy tanks move forward. I told you those heavy tanks were going to be a big difference. The Tillian forces have successfully secured government buildings, bridges, and comm centers. They are under Tillian control, crippling the Damascus defenders' ability to coordinate resistance. Their resistance continues in some pockets, but morale is quickly breaking down as critical infrastructure falls to Tillian controls. The defenders are being pushed into isolated strongholds. All right, the Damascus defenders are in full retreat, unable to regroup or resist effectively. The city is on the brink of falling. Should we prepare for surrender or ceasefire? We can offer terms of surrender. Let's offer terms of surrender. because the Tillian Republic they've basically successfully achieved their objective. With key locations secured and the ability to resist, you offer terms of surrender. The battle has cost them heavily. They're cornered without any meaningful hopes. Okay, so immediate ceasefire, safe passage, surrender of key leaders, control of infrastructure. We will allow humanitarian aid to reach the city. In the defenders' reaction, facing defeat, they will convene a military council to consider the terms. With key locations in hands, Damascus forces are demoralized. So let's find out what the outcome is. They agree to terms. The military lays down their arms and accepts the ceasefire. The Damascus commanders are detained and will be transferred to Tillian custody. They will be held for potential charges related to war crimes. I don't think so, Chief. Or violations of international law. The Damascus civilians will begin to receive assistance. Damascus is under control of the Tillian Republic, okay? So we're done. That's like all I needed to know, okay? So at this point, I'm going to tell the thing, end the scenario, okay? With the successful surrender of Damascus, the Tillian Republic has achieved a significant strategic and political victory. But I have some questions here, okay? The Tillian Republic controls the infrastructure. This is a political victory, but I have a couple of questions, right? And so I'm going to ask, what were the losses for the defenders' aircraft? Well, let's say medium armor, aircraft, and artillery. And let's find out what the model thinks we have left. The defenders suffered losses, particularly medium armor, aircraft, and artillery. Really? One tank, 3 out of 4 tanks were destroyed, right? 1 tank is rendered inoperable, so it's a total loss. 2 out of 3 aircraft were destroyed by anti-air fire and the air defense system. Wow, during an attempted bombing run, 2 of the ground attack planes were shot down by anti-air batteries. They didn't have any. I'm going to negate that because I don't think the model understands that the order of battle didn't include anti-aircraft. 1 aircraft made, so I'm actually going to, this was just demonstration that you can't rely on this 100%. The Tillian artillery, and again, it got this whole thing completely backwards, right? So I'm going to say, yeah, there's no losses there, right? No losses. So I think that really tells us what the results of this battle were. It was not pretty, and Damascus has fallen. An interesting scenario, quite a surprise. I'm a little surprised that the energy weapons didn't do... That's one of the other problems, is they're going to be able to reverse engineer our energy weapons now. The Tillians might be fighting us on even terms if we allow them to do that. Our goal for 2950 is going to be to retake Damascus. We're going to lose out on a lot of income. Damascus, of course, well, actually not that much. It's a bunch of artsy-fartsy guys. See the little 7 there is its current population. So we're going to be out that, and we're going to have to put together, probably out of Dion, we're probably going to have to put together a force to try and push them out. This is going to be expensive trying to retake Damascus. And oh, by the way, we still have to deal with raids from everybody else. Now, because we've lost one of our big cities, everybody else is going to be licking their chops. They are eager to carve up the carcass of the empire. The year is not over. There's one last thing we have to do, but I'm going to call timeout here because we need to reassess what happened in both of these fights. We need to do some financial stuff, and then we're going to look at the year 2950. We'll figure out who's raiding. We'll set up some more of these scenarios. And by all means, tell me if you like this little 20 to 30 minute scenario where we're just kind of running it through one of these limited language models and developing a narrative on the fly. The one thing I will point out before we close out for sure is that our defenses are, we're going to have to spend a lot of money rebuilding our defenses because we lost, what did we lose here? We lost the Hippos Battalion, our mechanized infantry, and our medium tank company. They're gone. We're going to have to start over with a new battalion next year. The good news is we can afford it. We have a war chest of something on the order of 250,000 credits, but we're not going to be making as much money next time. So tune in a week where we go over the next chapter of The Fall of Empire. Till then, I'm praying for you.